What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to a special third episode this week. We haven't done this in a while of the Mets'd podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in for this one. We are now going to be going to a 3-episode per week schedule. So this is something you can be accustomed to
during the season.
Something you can be accustomed to, get ready for the rest of the regular season, including the postseason, as long as the Mets are there, when they're there, whatever it is. But we have a big one for you guys today. We didn't do the Phillies preview in the last episode. That's because we're doing it on today's episode with a special guest, Ruben Amaro Jr., former first base coach for the Mets, worked in the front office, was a Phillies GM, outfielder, baseball lifer. That's all you need to know. Big Phillies guy and the host of the Phillies show over on the Foul Territory Network as well. So we have him on. Could talk to him for about 20 minutes. It was an amazing interview, amazing conversation with him. Big baseball guy as always. And anything else in particular before we just kind of rip this one here?
I mean, give the same intro spiel, even though it's the third episode of the week.
True. I guess because it's a third episode, I'm a little thrown off.
I think it's a little just too much fun.
Little too much fun here, but you guys know the drill. Follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to the Mets'd podcast YouTube channel if you want to see the video version of this. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast. I'm seeing we've got a lot of people listening on Overcast. Shout out to you guys over there. Shout out to everybody who's listening. We appreciate you. But Apple, make sure you download as well, because we're calling you out, specifically Apple Podcast. Download the podcast. It really does help us out. All right, James. How are we feeling? What's going on? That third episode. It feels weird. I don't really know what to do with my hands.
I don't know. It just feels a little abnormal for us right now, because usually we just like to talk for a long time, and we just talk so much anyway that all the conversations keep flowing. But now the fact that we have a third sanctioned episode, we're going to get creative and do some fun stuff for you guys. And going to, again, talk about the Kranepool. I told you guys yesterday. We're going to do a prospect report, but it might be a little different. So get ready for a little different kind of prospect report. I'm going to keep that one a surprise, and we're going to end with the Phillies preview and Ruben Amaro. But first off, I want to give a note to Ed Kranepool. The Mets family lost one of its most valuable members this week, and just really sad that Kranepool passed away. He is the epitome of the Mets. He is the forever Met. We a lot of times will pipe in the classic Don LaGreca rant from years ago by that.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again right now. You guys want to hear some of that?
Ed Kranepool. Ed Kranepool. That's your guy.
But Ed embodied everything it meant to be a Met. He played his entire career at the Mets. He appeared in his first game with the Mets in 1962 in their first season when he was freshly 17 years old, literally straight out of high school. He came right to the Mets and played towards the end of that season. He's a New Yorker through and through. He is the Mets for an entire generation of Mets fans.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many people in the history of Major League Baseball, modern era, I don't know, maybe in the 1800s it was a little bit different, but modern era baseball that have played in a professional Major League Baseball game at the age of 17 years old. We have a bunch of just ridiculous stats about his playing career. Literal legend, guy who I think doesn't get enough respect in the Mets world, especially probably amongst people around our age, just because he was a dude who played in the 60s, and like for terms of how baseball is spoke about now, would be a guy that would be forgotten about. But because he's an original Met, because he spent his entire career with this team, he really does mean so much to this franchise.
He was the only member of both the Mets 1962 and 1969 teams. So amazing that he was able to stand there, be there the whole time, and watch that team grow from, as of recording on September 12th, the worst team in baseball history. We're hoping that's over very soon. And then to climbing the mountain, being one of the most unlikely sports champions in American history that we've ever seen. And again, it all started for Ed as a New Yorker. He went to James Monroe High School in the Bronx, which was Hank Greenberg's alma mater. Hank Greenberg, one of the best power hitters in the history of baseball at the time he played. Ed actually broke Hank Greenberg's home run record in high school at James Monroe High School up in the Bronx, which is ridiculous. I think that also might be a funny thing for Ed Kranepool, is that he came to the Mets as like a star, a savior. Like, you're on the field at 17 years old. Like, people had like Hall of Fame aspirations. And Ed Kranepool never did that. He never got to that point of his potential, but he was an all-star. He won the World Series, and every single year of his career, every single at-bat he ever took was as a member of the New York Mets.
I mean, I'm just even going back to, again, being like the savior. So he broke his high school record, right? He would have been turning 18 in 1962 in November, because he was born in 1944. So he broke that record, by the way, in 3 seasons. New
York, you forget that the year cutoffs of the year. So he was just young for his grade.
Oh, it's not like New Jersey.
Yeah,
oh,
true.
Okay. That makes still crazy.
Never turned 18 in high school.
He would have been a New Jersey junior playing professional baseball for the New York Mets.
Absolutely, that which would have been even funnier. But I think the fact that he graduated high school is how he was able to play professional baseball. I don't think you're playing professional baseball, if you're still in school.
There was no rules in the 60s.
That's true. There were no rules. But Ed Kranepool still, right now, he has the most games ever played as a New York Met at 1,853. That's 300 more games than David Wright, who's in second. That is a mark that could possibly never be broken. That's 11 consecutive uninterrupted seasons as a position player with the Mets. Nimmo is the only guy I can really think of. I guess Pete, we'll see what winds up happening here. But Nimmo is the one guy who I think is in range of that. But he had so many injury problems early in his career. Like, he has to really put together a lot more seasons of playing full seasons. And with that, Ed's also second all time in the Mets in plate appearance, third all time in hits, third all time in total bases. This is, I think, my favorite one. Third all time in intentional walks as a Met. Mets history, behind Strawberry and Wright, which I thought that was a pretty cool one. So that's a big tip of the cap for where Ed Kranepool was on some what wound up being horrific Mets teams, both in the early and mid 60s and then the mid 70s before he hung it up. Fourth in doubles, fifth in RBIs. And this is another fun fact about Ed Kranepool I did not know. My dad told me this and I forgot it, and I read it this week as people were giving their homages to Ed. One of the greatest pinch hitters in the history of baseball. A lost art because pitchers don't hit anymore, so there's much less of a reason to pinch hit. Maybe once in a while you switch a lefty and a righty late in games, like we see Carlos Mendoza do all the time. But 90 career pinch hits for Ed, including 6 homers. And in 1974, he literally had the best pinch hitting season ever. Went 17 for 35 as a pinch hitter in one season.
Disgusting.
By far the highest average in the season for a pinch hitter, at least 30 at-bats.
To me, one of my favorite things about Ed Kranepool, and I know we've spoke about it in previous episodes, but the guys that he owned in his career, he has the most hits in his career against Bob Gibson, one of the greatest pitchers to literally ever step foot on a baseball field. They changed the mound height because Bob Gibson was too dominant, and Ed Kranepool hit .313 with a .370 on base against Bob Gibson in his career. He walked 11 times, struck out 4 times in 127 plate appearances against arguably the greatest pitcher in Major League Baseball history. There's more. You know who he has the second most hits against in his career?
Who?
Juan Marichal. Add another Hall of Famer to the list. Now, granted, a little less success, 212 average against him, but 22 hits. That's the second most hits he's had against any pitcher. Third, James, I'm going to tell you what, there's another Hall of Famer. Third most hits. Actually, technically tied for second, it's Gaylord Perry, another Hall of Famer. He had 22 hits. He hit 300 with a .338 on base against him, .783 OPS. You go down the list, Don Drysdale is 6th in terms of most hits that he had against. Jim Bunning, another great pitcher, 10th. Fergie Jenkins, 11th. Like, he was just a good little baseball player, something that, again, I don't think we would appreciate as much in the current state of baseball, but for the time that he played in, for the era, this was a dude who, again, probably didn't even get enough love at that time, especially amongst just Mets fans in general, because they were really, really bad teams for a really good portion of it, and he was never the star. But he had a great Major League career. How many people would love to say, played 18 years in Major League Baseball and accumulated 4 WAR? That would be incredible. That'd be sick.
Yeah, I've heard some of the pitchers who played with him back then talk about the fact that Ed Kranepool was such a knowledgeable first baseman that he was able to give a look that said when he knew a runner was going to steal. And that would give the pitcher and the catcher an indication of to do a pitch out or do a pickoff or just to be aware of what was happening. So that kind of cerebralness of an infielder or first baseman, that's something that's probably lost a lot in the modern game. We heard Pete and Gary wax poetically. Howie's been talking about it on Twitter. I'm sure he's going to talk a lot about it next time he's on the mic. I'm not sure if he's doing the Phillies series, but he's definitely going to be back on Monday for the National Series. And there have been, sadly, just a lot of losses in the Mets family recently in the last about 18 months. We lost Jerry Grody, Ed now, Bud Harrelson, which shook the Mets family to their core, Frank Howard, Pat Zachary, Roger Craig, Willie Mays. So it makes it, I think, that much more special in retrospect that Steve and Alex Cohen were able to get together Old-Timers Day a few years ago to get all of these guys in the ballpark. We were lucky enough to meet most of the guys I just mentioned, including tons of other Mets legends, just to see these guys all come together and be on the baseball field, wear the pants and take BP. You could feel like the joy in their eyes. And it was nice that happened. Also, really classy move by the Mets, knowing that there's not enough season left to properly honor Ed Kranepool. So we're waiting until 2025 so we can wear his number 7 patch for the full season.
Yeah, no, that's a really good move by them. Definitely the right decision because we don't want to rush the Ed Kranepool respect because the guy deserves a ton of it. I don't know if he'll ever get his number retired in the Mets history in terms of number retiring.
I think in the Mets Hall of Fame.
It would suck too to retire his number and he's not here. Like that would it would feel bittersweet.
Yeah, it would feel bittersweet, especially also because if they were going to do it, it would have already had to be done because But the Mets had another famous number 7 that wore that number. And for most of the generation of Mets fans now, probably is the much more recognizable number 7. But then also the last thing I want to talk about that Kranepool, he is a true connector of baseball eras, starting in 1962 and winding up his career playing through the 70s. He was teammates early on with Warren Spahn on some of those pretty rough Mets teams, and then by the end of his career, he was about to retire by the time that Jesse Orosco, a young reliever, was starting to make his name with the team. So Warren Spahn's career began in 1942, Mark, and Jesse Orosco's career ended in 2003. So Ed Kranepool himself connected 61 years of baseball. He took us from World War II to the steroid era in one shot, between one player in between those two things right there. So that's just to give a sense of how long he played, how valuable he was, and the kinds of teams that the Mets were putting on during that time. Also got to share a field with Willie Mays, and also got to be coached by Yogi Berra. Just talk about some other legends that Ed Kranepool came into contact with.
It's the 6 degrees of Ed Kranepool instead of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You can attach someone at some point in Major League Baseball history back to Ed Kranepool. Absolute legend. R.I.P. Gonna miss him in the Mets world. And if you want a good laugh, just look up some Ed Kranepool clips of when he's been on SNY the last couple of years. The dude's got some killer lines that he drops. All right, and before we do get going into this Phillies preview with Ruben Amaro, we do have to hear a word from our sponsor, Vuori. Shout out Vuori. Appreciate you guys. Vuori is a new perspective on performance apparel, perfect if you're sick and tired of traditional old workout gear. Vuori draws inspiration from the coastal California lifestyle. We make products that stand the test of time and hope to inspire others to live vibrant, healthy lives. Everything is designed to work out in, but doesn't look or feel like it. So comfortable, you will want to wear it all the time. Honestly, it's comfier than whatever you're wearing right now. The product is incredibly versatile. It can be used for just about any activity like running, training, swimming, yoga, but also great for lounging or weekend errands. Happier on a healthy planet, Vuori offsets 100% of their carbon footprint. And since 2019, they have offset 100% of their plastic footprint. They strive to utilize preferred materials for their products, empowering your best active life. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they're offering 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/foul. That's VUORI.com/foul. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to vuori.com/foul and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing.
That's a hell of an offer right there.
That is a great offer. And you know what's even better? Talking to Ruben Amaro. Here we go. All right, and we are now joined by former Phillies GM and outfielder, former Mets first base coach, color commentary for the Phillies broadcast, and current host of the Phillies Show, also part of the Foul Territory Network, Ruben Amaro Jr. Busy man, a lot of things to talk about here. Ruben, thank you for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Great to be with you guys, and welcome to the Foul Territory family. It's kind of cool to have you guys on board as well.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you for being our first guest as part of the Foul Territory Network. We love that a lot because the Mets and Phillies have a huge series this weekend in Philadelphia in Citizens Bank Park. And we usually see each other a lot, but the way the schedule's changed the last few years, the Mets and Phillies are seeing each other less often. We haven't seen each other actually in 3 full months since London, and the Mets and Phillies haven't seen each other on American soil in 4 months since May. So tell us what's changed from the Philly season from April and May through the summer to right now. Like a little synopsis, what's been going on.
Yeah, they've gone through a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Obviously in the first part of the season, they were playing extraordinary baseball. And then when they actually, right around the time they hit the London series, and right after that, they really sort of fell apart for a while. They really did not play great baseball. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that their starting pitching just was not the same. I mean, their starting pitching in the first part of the season was just off the charts. It was insane. And they were racking up numbers pretty regularly. Now, I think there was an effect of that because guys like Sanchez and Suarez had not built up that kind of those kind of workloads early in the season like that. I think it sort of started to affect them a little bit, particularly in Suarez's case, who was going nuts. Ranger was amazing and probably the best pitcher in baseball for like the first couple of months. And then I think just the workload itself got to him a little bit. He had some back spasms, some issues. And then as far as Sanchez is concerned, while he's progressed really, really well in his career, again, he hadn't logged this kind of mileage. So I think that sort of affected both those guys. And then, they lost Spencer Turnbull. They didn't have a whole lot of success nor health with Taijuan Walker. So you start hitting into that that quality pitching, and it started to go south. And then it was weird, like I guess starting in late May or early June or whatever, like the bats just went totally cold. I mean, they literally had 9 guys who just could not swing it. It was a very, very deep roster prior to that, or very deep lineup, but they just it was inexplicable how almost every one of those guys got cold at the same time. But they seem to have picked it back up, and they're playing much, much better baseball over the last 2.5, 3 weeks now. They're picked it up quite significantly, and I think a lot of it has to do with their pitching, but also their bats are starting to come alive again as well.
Is there as much buzz for this series in the Phillies world as there is for the Mets? I know we haven't played a lot. We have 7 games left against you guys. I feel like a lot of Mets fans are really talking about how maybe even the division is still up for grabs. What's the Phillies' perspective on what's going on with these upcoming series?
I think that they feel like this is a big series just because of the way the Mets have played. I mean, obviously the Mets are a totally different team. I mean, we're talking about almost like a 180 as far as their mojo, because they got that going. Obviously, Lindor's gone nuts, especially after his own meeting that he put together. I mean, his numbers are just insane after that. But their starting pitching has been like really, really good. And so, I mean, we're talking about like a totally different team. And, by and large, the Mets always play the Phillies really well. So I know the Phillies are up 4-4. I've won 4 of the 6 games so far, I think, in the series. Yeah. But this is an important series. I think it's probably a little bit more important for the Mets because obviously they're still fighting for that wild card spot and perhaps the division. But I feel like the Phillies, they want to also show their prowess here in the NL East. And the fact that they're playing, pretty darn good baseball lately, I think it's going to be a heck of a matchup. I think it'll be exciting for the fans, no doubt about it.
Oh, no doubt. I'm going to be in Philly Saturday. I'm excited to see it. It's going to be Severino versus, I forgot who's pitching for the Phillies. But has it been a weird experience for this Phillies team that's been so hungry for the last few years, so close to success in such a competitive division year after year, with the Mets 2 years ago, the Braves each of the last 2 years? Has it been strange as kind of wall-to-wall being in first place and never really breaking a sweat for this entire 162-game marathon?
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. I mean, you start thinking about, when we had like some really, really good teams over the years in, 07, 8, 9, 10, 11, when we had in some of those years, particularly in 9, 10, and 11, when we were, fairly well ahead, I think, in the division at times. But it's kind of strange. I mean, they've been sort of coming from behind the last couple of years, the Phillies have, and in a wild card position rather than being at the top of the division. Atlanta's been just phenomenal. I mean, they've won it 6 years in a row. They've been dominating,
painful,
for a long, long time. It's been tough for both Phillies and Mets fans because they've been so good. And then obviously the Mets a little faltered at that 1 year when they won over 100 games and got beat up. That was tough for them as well. But yeah, it's a little different. There's no question about it. But these guys have been really hungry. They got a serious chip on their shoulders because they lost the NLCS in a way that they probably felt they should have won. They also had an opportunity to win the World Series against Houston a couple of years back when they just couldn't get past their pitching. And I think that they're in a position right now where their mindset is, World Series or bust. And so it has been strange, but I'm not surprised by the just overall diligence that these guys have gone through, because Rob Thompson, I feel, is one of the best managers in baseball. I think he handles things extremely well. I think he handles the day-to-day operation of the team really well, and it's right now I think it's more about managing their health and making sure that they're ready to go and at 100% health-wise as they get closer and closer to the end of September.
When you're looking at this Phillies roster, a lot of huge names on there: Harper, Trey Turner, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler. Who's maybe a little bit of an under-the-radar, surprising player that Mets fans should keep an eye out for this series?
Well, I think Castellanos has been just phenomenal. He had a very poor start to the season, and he has, to me, he's really carried him. I think he and Bryson Stott has actually picked it up as well. I think those are two guys for me that have been really impressive, particularly on the offensive side. I think Castellanos' last, couple of 2.5 months, I mean, when everybody else was going south, he was still he was producing and picking them up, and he sort of saved them through that one period. And he continues to do well. And, there was some point, he's had his ups and downs with the Phillies, but he also, you go look back at the numbers, and he's one of the most productive right-handed hitters in the National League over the last 8 to 10 years. So he's starting to get close to those numbers now, and he's been pretty productive. Bryson Stott putting together a much better series of at-bats these days. Last year, he was phenomenal with 2 strikes. This year, in the early part of the season, just wasn't having the kind of quality of at-bats that you would think that he, a guy like that would have. You would think that he would have progressed a little bit better, but now he's starting to come around. So he's an interesting guy. And I think one of the guys that is sort of under the radar a little bit for the Phillies in the bullpen is Orion Kerkering, who's actually been really, really good lately, man. He's been throwing the ball. Yeah, he's been, and I think he's, he was relying on that sweeper slider, whatever you want to call it, for almost every pitch. And I think he's gotten to the point now where he can throw his 4-seamer and his sinker at times with a lot more conviction and confidence. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the bullpen has really picked it up lately, but he's been particularly good.
Yeah, that Philly bullpen, it's amazing what they've been able to do that in a short period of time. Something that was a true weakness for them even 2 years ago now probably is one of the best, I think, in the entire field in National League. Also super happy you brought up Bryson Stott. I know that Mark loves Bryson Stott, one of his favorite players in the league, one of his favorite players to watch play. But you mentioned Castellanos. Can you tell our listeners what exactly happened between Nick Castellanos and Rays reliever, current closer Edwin Uceta on Wednesday? Because there was a very tense situation, seemingly a couple mistruths told by Uceta and possibly some people on the Rays as well. So if you want to fill people in on that drama.
Yeah, obviously, I don't have any issue with guys sending a message. If somebody's hot, we'll pitch up and in. In this day and age, I think the pitchers have a much more difficult time of really commanding their stuff. But in this situation, I think Uceta, who's had a phenomenal year, he was pitching extremely well, and then the Phillies beat him up. They whacked him around pretty well, and home run, double, and then he was gotten to the point where he was really frustrated. And I think he literally, just because he was pissed off, he just threw at him. and that to me is that's pretty egregious. And I think that the Phillies let that be known openly. Afterwards. Yeah. I think Uceta said something like, well, that was a change-up or something. That's a bunch of bullshit. That wasn't a change-up. 96-mile-an-hour change-ups. So I
saw it today. That was the fastest pitch of his entire career. 96.2 miles an hour.
Yeah. So he's full of shit. He literally he literally just threw at him, and and rightfully got suspended. There's one thing to send a message. There's another thing entirely to act like a child, which is what he did. And it's dangerous in this day and age. Especially for a team who's trying to contend, and especially for a guy's health when they're throwing the ball, anywhere from 95 to 100 miles an hour. There's danger there, especially when most guys cannot really command. Listen, I've been plunked before. I remember in spring training one time, I tried to bunt on Burt Blyleven in an inter-squad game. The next time he smokes me right on my ass. And he's like, "Hey, rookie, you're not bunting on me in a spring training game." And I'm like, "Okay, I get the message. I get it." And you sort of have an understanding about those things, but that's not like that much these days. And in this situation, I think it was pretty egregious.
Do you think that something like that can almost awaken the sleeping giant a little bit with the Phillies, where that's going to be something that unites them a little bit, gets them a little bit more fired up? As a Mets fan, I'm really hoping it doesn't, but what do you think? You've been a little closer than us to them.
Well, I think it's a really tight unit as it is. But all those kinds of things, like when people are backing each other and you have that sort of camaraderie on your team where guys literally like each other. These guys, it's one of those clubhouses, and I've been around really good ones, and I've been around really crappy ones. And I will tell you that these guys really genuinely care for each other and pull for each other and hope that they play well together because they have one goal. And that's a hard thing to do. And it doesn't happen all that often. There for years and years and years, you had 25 players, 25 caps, that was sort of the discussion. But I think there is a camaraderie amongst this team, and there is a mutual respect in this team that's pretty special. And I think that's not something. I mean, I think it was sort of created by some of the players, but it was also created by the front office and Rob Thompson and his staff. And I think they all deserve a lot of credit for that, because when you think about it, only the guys that are like homegrown are not the big boys.
No.
They brought a lot of these guys from outside. So JT was from outside, who's a big leader. Schwarber came from outside, who's a huge leader. Harper came from outside. I mean, you talk about all free agents, and that doesn't happen all that often and even Trey Turner, obviously, that doesn't happen all that often when you have all these free agents coming in and you have this sort of bond. It usually comes from like the core guys. For us, it was, Rollins, Utley, Howard, who were all homegrown guys, and Chooch, who was the catcher. Those were sort of the core guys. And typically the core guys that you have are homegrown, but in this case, it's not, and it's pretty unique.
Yeah, there's so much credit I feel like has to be given to both Thompson, Dombrowski, and his staff for building this team, because the names you just said are more or less an all-star team of the last 5 years of baseball. And then to be able to fill in the rest of this roster with Bohm, Stott, enough homegrown guys, and then the little pieces of this rotation between Sanchez, how good he's been, all these bullpen guys are mentioning, Jeff Hoffman out of nowhere. Like, this is all, it's really probably top to bottom right now the strongest team in baseball. So if this Phillies team, again, 3 years in a row, doesn't win it all, can't climb the mountain, what could possibly hold them back? What would have gone wrong?
Yeah, I always feel like when you get into postseason, man, you have to have a lot of luck. I mean, and you have to be playing well. And I think pitching has a lot to do with it. I mean, you got to get the guys to eat up innings, the starters to eat up innings, and they have to be able to perform. And listen, it's not easy. I remember, in 9, 10, and 11, I thought we had every bit of as good a ball club as there was in baseball when I was in the GM post, but we just could not get over the hump. We kept losing, in the series because we just didn't play well enough at the time. And so I think it's about 1, luck. I think it's 2, health. I think it's 3, being able to execute. I think execution's a huge one. Like everybody game plans nowadays, and everybody has brilliant people game planning, and we know how to get this guy out, and we know when he swings, and we know his hot zones and his, cold zones and all that stuff. It's really about whether your team executes better than the other team. And if you can do that, you got a chance. I mean, as long as you're in the tournament, man, you got a chance to do some damage.
Yeah, no, Phillies will be there. Definitely going to be in the playoffs and have had some success, like you said. Looking at their rotation too, going forward in the postseason, you have Wheeler, you have Nola. Those guys are going to be pitching your first 2 games of the series. Who's your number 3 starter for the Phillies right now? Are you going Sanchez? Are you going Suarez?
So for me right now, the way Sanchez is pitching, it's Sanchez. As Suarez looks, his stuff is not as sharp as it has been, and I'm not sure what's going on, except his last couple of outings, while he's thrown okay, he's just leaving a lot of pitches. His sharpness is not nearly where it was in the first couple of months of the season. And so I'm not sure when they're going to need that 4th guy, but they may put that guy in the bullpen. I mean, Suarez has been outstanding in the bullpen in the past. You see his numbers are like extraordinary in the playoffs because he's not very foul. I mean, he's one of those guys that doesn't get real rattled. Like he's just very, very good in those pressure situations. So he may be. I see them as the top 3 going Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, but I mean, again, it all kind of depends. If Suarez really tightens up and sharpens up over the next couple of starts, as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, you may see those guys flip flop.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially given the way they started. But Sanchez has been so good, especially
he's been fantastic, and his stuff is getting better and better. I mean, he's starting to gain. Last year he was averaging, I think his fastball sinker, whatever, was like 92, 93. Now he's averaging a 94 to 96 mile an hour fastball and is starting to command it. The development of that player is like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
And the changeup's got to be one of the best in the league.
He's got a great changeup, and there are times when he loses his feel for it and he cuts it and does different things to it, but just the overall development of that player at the major league level, to see where he was when he first got to the big leagues and where he is now is it's astonishing. And it's really a great story. And credit to, the pitching guys, Caleb Cotham and Brian Kaplan. And there's a whole bunch of guys that touched him and to him personally, because he really wanted to make himself a better pitcher. And you got to take, the dedication of being able to do that. And for him to have done that's pretty cool.
Ruben, we're going to get you out of here in 2 minutes. We want to ask you 2 quick questions just specifically about the
Sure.
Mets. One, we know you're an old school guy. Do you think a designated hitter should win the MVP award?
I would not have said, would have said no. I do think Lindor's had an extraordinary season, and probably if you take Lindor off that ball club, clearly that Mets team goes nowhere.
Yeah.
I have to say, though, that with what Ohtani has done, the extraordinary numbers he's put up, you think about all the guys that they've lost and a lot of the issues they've had as well. And had Ohtani not been on that ball club with Mookie Betts down and Muncy out and a whole bunch of guys out of there, they probably would not be where they are today. I mean, I think it's a great argument because Lindor is such a special overall talent and has had such a phenomenal season. It's a tough call, man, but I guess I have, just because of the extraordinary levels of numbers that I think Ohtani's put up, and the fact that had he been off that ball club, that team would have been, would have been sinking too, especially with the way Padres are playing and such. I just feel like I think I've got Ohtani on a slight edge over him, man. And typically I would not, but he's been just so extraordinary, man. It's just hard to look away from it.
It's good for the Mets-Phillies rivalry, too. Pick the
Yeah.
Let's keep it going a little bit there.
There you go.
And then the last thing, of course, you were there in 2018. We got to talk about Jacob deGrom. He's coming back this weekend for the Rangers. Obviously not part of the Mets anymore, but we still think about him every single day. You got to see maybe one of the greatest pitching seasons of all time in 2018 when you were part of the organization. Right. What was that like? How locked in was that guy?
Yeah, he was pretty extraordinary. There's no question about it. And in fact, I talk about this a lot, and I'm not sure whether he was being pushed or there was so many good pitchers in that rotation, and not everybody performed. But if you guys remember, Zach Wheeler ended up having a phenomenal second half of that season. And it was almost like start for start, like who's better. And he was like under the radar, and I'm sitting there watching him going, well, deGrom's having a ridiculous season, but this other guy, he's really, really good too. So, and it was like, I have to go back and look at the numbers, but it just seemed like Zach Wheeler took his game to the next level at that point, and that's where he became Zach Wheeler, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that him sort of competing with deGrom, I think that had a lot to do with it. And so it was just a cool thing to watch. I mean, deGrom obviously one of the more dominating two-pitch pitchers I've ever seen. The only thing that my issue with deGrom obviously is the fact that he just doesn't stay healthy, and he doesn't pitch with a lot of length. I mean, he's 5 to 6 inning pitcher you like to see, and I know it's probably because his stuff's so ridiculous that there's some maximum effort there. But that season was an amazing one. It was like, if you get a run off him, you're happy as hell because he was just so dominant.
Yeah, completely ridiculous. But Ruben, don't want to take much more of your time here. Thank you so much for coming on with us. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate that we're all part of the Falatory Network now, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, it's awesome. Good to be with you guys, and should be a great 3 games against the Metsies.
Yes, don't forget to check out the Philly show as well, part of the Foul Territory Network. Ruben, thank you so much.
Okay, guys, we'll see you.
Ruben was awesome.
Yeah, Ruben was great. I mean, I think if he wasn't busy with that poker tournament that he had going on today, I think we could have talked for another couple hours. Baseball guys.
I think legitimately, I love now that we're with the Foul Territory Network because we're able to get these guests. But I do think, and we've had this happen to us in the past with guests, because we're definitely a bit of like, who the fuck are these guys kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
YouTuber and James is like fantasy baseball Roto World guy. Like, who's this guy?
Yeah, why am I talking to these people? And then once we get to talk to these baseball guys for 3 minutes, they're like, oh, I like talking to these guys. These are baseball guys. Ruben dropped a curse too, which was amazing. That was fun. And now he knows that one of Mark's favorite baseball players is the famous Bryson Stott.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite baseball players. I love that you slipped that in there, James.
I also do. And also, I love that we were like, who are you going to start in the playoffs? Think Ranger Suarez gets a shot? What's going to stop the Phillies from winning? Just trying to stir a pot a little bit, plant a little seeds in the Phillies not winning a World Series. That's what we really hope for. And then also just want to fill you guys in pitching matchups. We and Sam, that interview Friday night, 6:40 start time. Jose Quintana versus Aaron Nola. Saturday, going to be in the ballpark, Citizens Bank, enemy territory, bees on the G.
Be careful.
Yeah, I'll be okay.
Thugs.
Luis Severino versus Kobe Allard, which is just
what?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, and then Sunday 1:35, bit of an ace-off we got here. David Peterson versus Christopher Sanchez.
Bit of an ace-off is right. Couldn't have
Bit
said it
of an
better
ace-off.
myself.
Couple big lefties. And now, guys, we're going to take you into the prospect report. But first, I have a word from Anytime Fitness. So fall is a great time of year to reset your routine and prioritize your physical and mental health. Or maybe you just moved to a new city and are looking for a gym that can provide you with expert coaching, maybe 24/7 convenience, and inclusive community vibe. If any of these make sense for you, then you definitely have to check out Anytime Fitness ASAP. Their expert coaches will collaborate with you to build a comprehensive and personalized plan to get you where you want to go, all while providing ongoing accountability and recognition that challenges you to keep improving along the way. Their support doesn't end with training either. They also focus on body intelligence like sleep data, health metrics, nutrition, and injury prevention to give you a full and comprehensive coaching to help you be stronger and more confident version of yourself. Be sure to check out Anytime Fitness via the link in today's episode description for more information and to claim your free trial pass. To claim your free Anytime Fitness trial pass, just visit anytimefitness.com. That's ANYTIMEFITNESS.com and get yours today.
Yeah, I mean, working out's good. I've been doing it this week. I've been feeling a lot better. Everybody should get over to Anytime Fitness, grab that free trial today. All right, let's go ahead and get into this prospect report. It's an abbreviated one. It's also a little bit of a different one because we're not just going to be talking about Mets prospects that are currently on this team. We might be talking about a couple Mets prospects that are no longer on this team.
Yeah, but first, a couple prospects that are still on the team. Brandon Sproat, it was announced this week, is going on the developmental list.
Hey, what does that
a lot
mean?
of people were like, what the hell is developmental list? So I have MLB.com's description for you right here.
Great.
The developmental list was instituted in 2021 to help major league organizations help monitor minor league prospects usage and development. So there's something for pitchers who have approached their innings limit. It's often implemented to help pitchers to help limit the pitcher's pitch count or innings while allowing them to stay with their team, watch, and continue learning with the staff.
I don't really understand it still, but
all it means is that Brandon Sproat no longer is taking up a roster spot on AAA Syracuse, but he's still on the team in the clubhouse there every day. He's not pitching this year, and he's not injured, but he's hit his innings limit. He's going to be in the meetings every single day. He's going to be with the coaches every day, but he will not pitch anymore.
Oh, he's not going to pitch at all anymore.
Not pitching anymore.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Weird that we even need to, I guess, have that in terms of like, are we really checking rosters in AAA? Is that really what's happening?
Oh, too many guys on AAA roster. Oh my God. But that's just what that means. So I think a lot of people were a little confused by that, especially because Brandon Sproat hasn't been amazing in AAA. But we've talked about some reasons why for that in the past. Main ones being that they use a different baseball, so that's going to affect a guy like Sproat. Especially when a field guy who has multiple breaking balls, they use a different strike zone. They use the ABS system with the challenge system, so you're learning a whole new thing there. And it's just a good time to be like, this was a really successful year. They basically made the decision that there's 0% chance he's going to be a part of this team through the stretch run, the major league team. So just hang out, stop. Let's have a real good offseason. Let's get ready to be full steam ahead in 2025.
Yeah, and speaking of which, another guy we want full steam ahead in 2025, Jet Williams. Been playing a little bit better this week. Over those last 3 games, he's basically gotten 2 hits, I think, in every single one of his last 3 games. So 4 for 8 in his last 3. He's just been really good. Jet Williams is a great prospect. We know that a hand injury, one's going to take a minute to recover from. Wrist injury, same thing. Is going to take a second to recover from. A guy like Jet, maybe Arizona Fall League, just because he hasn't had a lot this year and he's a top prospect. I'd love to see him there. We've been to the Arizona Fall League. It's an awesome time.
The best.
Maybe the boys run it back again. Who knows? We'll have to see what's going on there with our schedules. But we'd love to see Jet back there getting a little bit more playing time because a little bit of a lost season this year.
Yeah, majorly lost season. And wrist is so important for a guy like Jet, who's a bit of an undersized yet powerful hitter. He needs that wrist to be as strong as possible for him to be the player we know it can be. Another guy who looks like he might be becoming the player we thought we knew he could be. This is a throwback to February, March Messed Up listeners. You guys are going to love this.
This is when I did the thumbnail and the title of the Mets have the best bullpen.
Best bullpen.
And it was with Shintaro Fujinami and Jake Diekman. Neither of them are technically on the major league roster for the New York Mets as of right now.
But guys, Shintaro Fujinami has finally found a groove with AAA Syracuse. Since the beginning of July, he has a 2.01 ERA and 33% strikeout rate. Still a 14% walk rate. We don't love that. But he's going on right now. Hasn't given up an earned run since August 14th. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 appearances, which is kind of awesome in a row. He hasn't given up a run. The walks are down those 8 appearances too. And on the season, he's finally looking like he's a guy that can I'll say this, make an impact maybe. Maybe things are getting crazy. And it's been a lot more four-seam fastballs, a lot of cutters, a few less splitters, because it seemed like that was a pitch you couldn't really command, but still getting whiffs for him. But that fastball has been averaging 98 miles an hour. That cutter is acting more like a baby slider rather than the fastball variant, and that's sitting between 85 and 88. And he still drops those nasty splitters, but a tiny bit less often now. But we're seeing someone who, again, with this cutter, is becoming a guy who it's possible. It's truly possible he can actually get some big innings 15 down the stretch, which didn't even seem at all likely, even remotely likely 2 months ago. But it seems like finally something has clicked for Shintaro, and he's a guy who throws 100 miles an hour, which we would love to have.
Yeah, I mean,
if he can throw strikes. If he can throw strikes.
I mean, it also wouldn't be out of the norm if a guy in the Mets bullpen didn't throw strikes. I mean, how many times have we seen that happen this year? But yeah, you're looking at the Mets bullpen. He'd basically be taking the spot of either an Alex Young or Adam Ottavino, it seems like, are the two guys on the totem pole that are going to be the lowest for this bullpen. And right now, there really is no reason yet to bring him up. There's no reason to rush him until the Mets feel 100% that he's ready. But definitely someone to keep an eye out for. Again, our prospect report, we're going to do a much bigger one when the minor league season ends. I think right now the focus is on Major League Baseball. There's a lot of things going on with the team that actually matters right now, not the guys in the minors as much. But at the same time, quickly, we do have to talk about a couple guys that used to be a part of this organization. One of them was actually technically never a part of the organization. That being Kumar Rocker, who is going to be making his Major League Baseball debut on Thursday night against the Seattle Mariners, which couldn't be more of a dream matchup probably if you're a guy like Kumar Rocker. The Mariners strike out a ton. He has one of the nastiest sliders right now in all of baseball. The fastball's reaching the upper 90s. He's looking disgustingly good, and I will say, with the Mets having an off day, and Thursday Night Football will be on one screen, but I'm definitely going to be watching Kumar Rocker start because, we might have fucked this one up big time.
Yeah, we might have fucked it up big time, but I think it's also a situation where we can't be exactly... I'm pissed off about how it wound up.
Yes.
But in the moment, I'm still not like
good
furious
process?
About the process. It's not good process, but it was process kind of. But
it was a process we understood.
Yeah, and I think they still understood. We'll give some context, but just another couple cool things about Kumar Rocker before he makes his debut. First made player of Indian descent ever to start play a game in baseball history, which is cool. Incredible. He also, you talk about the slider, it's ferociously good. His fastball also is the only one. This came from our friend, I think it was TJ Stats. I'm going to give him credit, even though it might not have been him as I scroll Twitter and try to find it. But with his exact velocity, extension, release height, and IVB, there's only one other fastball in baseball like it. Can you guess whose it could be?
Okay, so I saw Lance's video about how Kumar is 6'5", but his release point is 5'8", which is below average just in general, let alone for his size. Chris Sale?
No, it's Paul Skeens.
Oh,
yeah.
Another really good pitcher. Okay.
Another pitcher whose fastball definitely I'd say works because big reason because 100 miles an hour, which Kumar Rocker is going to sit 97, 98. And the slider he's going to walk into Major League Baseball, and that slider is going to be one of the best in baseball.
Yeah, I believe Lance is planting his flag that it might be the best slider already.
Yeah, and I had a good tweet that's become back, and some Rangers fans especially have found it recently, which is from May 16th, 2023, which is admittedly not that long ago.
No.
Not long ago at all. Not really long ago. What, 15 months ago? 16 months ago? I said, hand up, Mets swapping Kumar Rocker for Kevin Pillar looks amazing in hindsight. That wasn't true. And I'll tell you guys this. I never, ever would have sent that tweet if we weren't working for the Mets at the time.
That's true.
That was me being a shill, so apologies for that one. But that was also the day that it was announced that Kumar Rocker was going to have Tommy John surgery later that week. That was after Kumar Rocker had full-on shoulder surgery after the Mets declined him basically in the draft. So I think that is where I want to take this conversation for 2 seconds because it's easy now to have hindsight being 2020, being like Kumar Rocker healed, Kumar Rocker came back strong, and now Kumar Rocker is going to probably be an amazing pitcher. But at the time he was drafted, the Mets took him, I think it was 12th overall, right, Mark, in 2021?
The Mets took him 10th overall in 2021.
10th overall 2021. He was basically, him and Scott Boras were basically not being truthful about his medicals and his physical, and he was drafted. And he and the Mets had agreed in principle to a deal that was right at his slot value, as it was a college junior at the time, still 1 year eligibility left to Vanderbilt. And then as the Mets did their medical evaluation with him, they realized this guy needs massive surgeries. And again, since then, he's had a shoulder surgery and an elbow surgery, both of those things. I think a lot of Mets fans have PTSD with guys like Matt Allen.
I pulled up Matt Allen's baseball reference. And I was going to be, I think, a big reason why the Mets didn't pursue him as aggressively as they were hoping to and not bring him in was probably because they felt a little bit burned by Matt Allen, who third round pick in 2019 has literally only thrown 10 innings in professional baseball. They happened in that 2019 season, the year that he got drafted. He's still currently on the 60-day IL in the Mets organization. You feel for a guy like that, but I think because they've seen what happened with him and just the idea of paying millions of dollars to a guy who already has these nicks and bruises and essentially bad bones and ligaments at the time, a little bit scary.
Yeah, and these aren't nicks and bruises again. Since the Mets drafted Rocker and decided not to sign him, he had full shoulder surgery, full Tommy John surgery, pitched a full year in indie ball in the Frontier League, and now has come back to the Ranger system. So I think at the time, now it feels horrible, and at the time it also didn't feel great. But the situation around that then was that Kumar Rocker and Scott Boras wouldn't budge on the slot value that the Mets had offered first after this new information came out. So then it became a full-on pissing contest between the Mets and Scott Boras. And if you guys remember, it was really bizarre. We talked about it on the show at the time, as much as we were allowed to talk about it, because we couldn't talk about it a lot, because when we worked for the Mets. So it's 2022 then, not 2023. It's 2022, right?
2022, we started working with the team.
Scott Boras put up a billboard for Kumar Rocker in New York City. That doesn't fucking happen for Major League Baseball draft prospects. That was completely insane. That was him trying to push public perception and make Mets fans go crazy, and it did work. And now again, Kumar's great, so it's all funny in hindsight. But he got drafted the next year by the Rangers. I think he got drafted second, third, fourth overall high, but he was signed for something like 25% less than the slot value of that pick, which was still a good pick. But the Rangers basically took him knowing that he was realistically more of a puzzle piece in their full draft, because they were able to give him such a low slot value. And that allowed them later on that draft to take a high school pitcher who was a freak of nature, Brock Porter.
Yep.
And they were able to move their money around and give Kumar Rocker less of a bonus. They could give a later round pick more of a bonus. Then they kind of got the equivalent of 2 first-round pick talent pitchers. So that's just a weird thing with the MLB draft. And it all just comes back to the fact that him and Boras wouldn't budge, wouldn't negotiate at all after they found out that he had these massive medical issues.
Yeah, Kumar Rocker ended up getting $5.2 million. For context, the number 1 pick, Jackson Holliday, got $8.19. Drew Jones at number 2 got $8.18. And those were the 1-2. Kumar was 3, dropped to 5.2. And that is like the 8th or 9th highest draft pick slot value or bonus that was given out in that draft, and he was selected 3rd overall.
Still good.
Yeah, no, still a ton of money. I'd be very, very happy if I was him. And I think he is going to be very happy, especially because if he pitches like we've seen in the minors, he's going to be getting paid big bucks later on in his career.
Yeah, bottom line is he looks incredible. Now it feels horrible for the Mets, but I feel like contextually, I don't know. This isn't something.
By the way, you were talking about Brock Porter. Brock Porter got $3.7 million as a 4th round pick that year. So just, again, the MLB draft is so bizarre. That's why it was also such a great pick.
Again, so there you go. Basically, the picks before and after Kumar Rocker were the same money slot value as Kumar Rocker plus Brock Porter.
Yes.
Which is why that's why the MLB draft I think is so fun. That's also why I think the MLB draft is such a hard thing to analyze, because all these teams are playing a game rather than just picking the best players like in the other leagues and drafts, which is a weird thing, but that's just how we do it, I guess, and how we're going to continue to do it. So it's a fun thing to keep an eye on. But just, process there wasn't really great. It also wasn't horrible, and I'm just tired of all the doom porn about everyone posting this shit about Kumar Rocker right now on Twitter. The fact that like Kumar Rocker, Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer pitcher, like, oh, alternate universe, he's gonna be the Mets 3 pitches this weekend. Shut the fuck up. Those are not gonna be the Mets 3 pitches this weekend. That was not how it was gonna go. I don't want. Do you guys want to be paying Jacob deGrom this money right now? No.
I'll tell you this too. Also, the alternate universe is the Rangers are out of the playoffs. I'd much rather be in the Mets position right now than I would be the Rangers. I don't know why we would want to be in the alternate universe where the Mets are our worst team.
For sure not. Oh, the Rangers are coming off World Series championship, but
I want that Rangers
right
team.
Now. Yeah. Last year I want the Rangers. This year I don't want the Rangers. But I think that's annoying me. And also, there's another one. This is another one that was bad process, and now it's becoming bad results.
Yeah.
Pico Armstrong looks sick as fuck.
He looks like a good ball player.
Yeah, mainly that one jerk, DANCALRK, was saying that this isn't an impressive baseball player. Because that's a person that doesn't actually watch baseball. It's a person that just looks at player stats and makes his determinations.
You know his whole bit, right? You know he's a bit on Twitter. He's like not even, I don't even think a real person. I think Dan Clark is like a persona. He's an Australian who just kind of just baits people on Twitter.
Oh, so he's like the Nick Adams of baseball.
A little bit. Like,
okay.
I genuinely, I don't even really know if he's ever been to a baseball game. Like,
that makes a lot of sense. Because he gets a bunch of engagement on bad baseball takes. But Pico Armstrong is ascending rapidly. Yeah. He is incredible. He had a game on Tuesday night where he put on one of the best shows of defensive alpha I think I've ever seen ever in baseball.
I was talking with my dad about it because he robbed a home run to win the game, missed one earlier in the game.
In the 8th inning, he made a sliding catch in the gap with 2 men on. My jaw dropped.
He plays baseball with an air of looseness that I don't really remember ever seeing. He plays baseball like he's playing pickup basketball, and when you're just better than everybody else and more athletic, where you're like, oh, I can just do this in my sleep. It's not really easy. He's robbing home runs like it's nothing. Like they're routine plays. We need TJ Stats to give us the catch probability on all these plays. I want to see what they look like. He's incredibly fast. He has incredible range, has a cannon of an arm. The hitting's starting to come around too, which is really scary.
Hitting's coming around a big way.
That's been the one thing that you can maybe take a shot at Pete Crow about, is that the hitting had been pretty bad for the first half of the year. But I think since the end of August, he's basically been hitting like 350 and hitting for power. Like, he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, we're looking at someone with his floor, I think, is like a borderline all-star every single year, and his ceiling is someone who's a monster.
And what do you know? Since he's been playing well, the Cubs have been winning games. He's a dude who could change how this franchise looks the next couple of years.
No, he I was on Roto World podcast the other day, Eric Samolsky. He comped him offensively right now to CJ Abrams, which I don't even think is that far off, because he's a guy who will not walk, similar to Abrams, and Pete Crow has found some power recently. He's really closed up a hole up and away part of the zone. He was just flail at that pitch. His hips used to go out. Now he's finding a way to put that ball in play, put it in play hard, go the other way with it, and that's allowing him to open up his strike zone more and get to his power that he wants to get inside. Defensively, again, that pickup basketball, that's a great take, because it's like that's how he feels and he plays. But he plays a little loose with abandonment sometimes. He kind of cost the Cubs the game yesterday. I don't know if you were watching. I'm buried in late night baseball this week. I don't know why all my pitchers fantasy baseball are just Dodgers, Astros, Padres, Mariners. But I was watching the Cubs Dodgers game. Series has been electric, by the way.
Yeah, good series.
Crazy, outrageous baseball every single game, Monday through Wednesday. It was a back and forth, heavy offensive game. The game was 5-2 after the first inning, and it wound up, I think this time it was, I want to say 7-5 Dodgers. Pete Crow just got a single at first and second, and a throw came through to the plate. I think it was either Miguel Amaya or Michael Busch. Didn't come home. It was too close of a hit. Pete Crow figured everyone was going to move up a base, because that's how he plays baseball.
Of course.
And he didn't even look. He ran from first to second base after his single. And then he just stood there in a rundown to be like, tell the guy third to run home, because he thinks everybody else in the field is also Pete Crow Armstrong. So they could just steal a run whenever they want. So then they got whoever, I think it was, again, Michael Busch, out in a rundown between third and home, and Pete Crow had to go back to first. So then instead of second and third, one out, if Pete would have just been tagged right there and understood the situation, it wound up being first and second one out, and the Cubs didn't score any more runs that inning.
The growing pains,
and then wound up losing the game.
Impressively talented, athletic rookie that's just kind of learning the game of baseball as he goes as well. Because talent-wise, it's definitely, you see the ceiling with a guy like Pete Crow Armstrong. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the prospect report. Wanted to keep it short. This ended up being longer than our episode yesterday, which is just,
that's hilarious.
This is us. We're sick in the head. We could literally talk about baseball for hours upon hours. Maybe you guys like that. I don't know. Let us know in the comment section. Tweet at us. Do you like the longer episodes when we ramble? Do you like the shorter ones where we're a little more concise? Would love to hear some feedback on that. Before we do wrap up, we do have a few reviews to read. Of course, if you guys drop us a review on Apple, we'll read out what you guys say. We got 3 of them, James. I'll take the first one here. I believe this person's done it before. The weather. Okay. 5 stars, best Mets podcast. Definitely my number 1 Mets podcast. These fellas capture the feeling of chatting with good friends about the Mets, and they sprinkle in some really top tier insights. Simply put, these guys know ball. I really enjoy the crossovers and segments like Media Marvels. I love the stories about what's going on in their lives too, and the NYC name drops. I gotta say, the Levy is better than Rockarola. Interesting.
Yeah, the Levy's a good bar. It truly is. I think now that Rockarola is changing a little bit.
I know, $4 schooners now. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, but it's also all the Manhattanites found out about Rockarola now.
So they're ruining it. They're ruining.
That's why we have to go. That's why we have to go on Tuesday at 1 a.m. That's our time to be there.
You want to take the next one?
Yeah, I'm loading it up right now. Definitely, yep. Here, this was from I Love Football Strike. I don't know what that is, but hey guys, been watching Markson steal a star 11 in 2017. What is that? That's
like one of my first ever YouTube series on Giraffe Neck Gaming.
That's crazy. And listening to the podcast since day one. Love everything you do. P.S. James, you should change back to Jeter had no range since you guys no longer affiliate with the Mets. The Mets didn't tell me to change that. The Mets never, ever told me to change that.
That was me. I said to say it.
Yeah, Mark said to change that because Mark was like, we're going to get a lot more hits now. You probably want to be known by your name rather than like your troll persona. I was like, yeah, you are probably right about that. So that's why I changed it. I don't think I'm going to go back either. But I love that everyone remembers me for that, which is kind of funny. But also, can I get a happy birthday since the next episode's on my birthday? Happy birthday, dude.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Appreciate the review. And then you got the last one?
Yeah, last one from Mike and Joe. Hey, Mark and James, love the podcast. I've been watching and listening since early 2021 and met you both back in 2022 at the Queens Baseball Convention. With the season coming to a close, who do you think the Mets' hero to a potential playoff run will be? Also, we need to end the DJ Stewart experiment. All right, you know what? My pick's going to be DJ Stewart. He's our hero.
I don't think it's going to be DJ Stewart.
Probably not.
Yeah, I'm honestly just hoping Brandon Nimmo or Pete Alonso wake up on the right side of the bed, and just one of those two just goes nuclear like we know they can, because we need something pushed over the edge here badly.
We need it. Big series coming up against the Phillies. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the third episode of the week. Again, new format, 3 episodes during the week, during the regular season. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to drop a like on the video if you did over on YouTube. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download and subscribe. Follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And again, subscribe to the Mets'd podcast YouTube channel. Download the podcast.
Download Apple.
Yes, download on Apple. James, what's your Twitter?
James_Shiano.
I'm Draftnik Mark with a C. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll catch you after the Phillies series. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Let's fucking go Mets.